So it is always necessary to have a encrypted channel. So even when you're browsing on the internet, when you're visiting any web page, ensure that your web page you're visiting that is having a valid SSL or TLS certificate. So that you can verify by on the before the address, right, URL, before the URL you will have this green padlock symbol, like a lock symbol. So that if you click on it, it will say your certificate is valid. If the certificate is valid, then it is fine. Otherwise your browser will tell you that it is not secure to access this site. Maybe you would have seen while browsing to URLs which does not have a valid SSL TLS certificate. Chrome will say that the website does not have a valid TLS certificate. Attackers might be trying to steal your credentials or confidential data, right? So that is because the website is not having a valid TLS certificate. So that is about it. And next will be, so data in transit not only for the HTTPS connection, let it be anything else. Say for example, if you're accessing the server from your home. So now we have this global pandemic, right? So most of us are working from home. So for that, to access the servers from home, for example, if there are network engineers, they access, they even they work from home, they need to have access to the servers at the organization or in the data centers, right? So for that, they will have to log in using a VPN, virtual private network. So that will be establishing a private network, which is again a hashed communication. I mean, sorry, an encrypted communication. So this is something that is data in transit that gets protected. So next will be data in use. So data in use, whichever data we are using it currently on our system or on our server. So whenever you're using the data, it should be protected. So for example, let us say an organization may allow you to access data or the information which we have. Say for example, you have the policy documents, the whatever business critical information, right? So that information, you can use it as long as you're a part of the organization, and as long as you're working from the office network. So apart from that, you should not be able to send it or upload it to your personal drive or personal cloud account or your Gmail. You should not be able to do that. An organization should not allow that ideally. So for that, what the organization would do is we provide kind of Citrix access, where the user will only be accessing the data only from that particular machine, and he will not be able to copy or download the data anywhere. So that is one thing. Another point will be endpoint protection or data loss prevention mechanisms are there, where it will not allow you to upload any data to outside the organization, like any Google Drive or Dropbox or whatever it is. So that is data in use. So any data that should be protected by using, and it will not go beyond the control of the organization. Data at rest, transit, and use. Let's go back to the. So now we talked about information, the classification of it, what kind of security controls we need. So now let's see what tools are used to implement the information security. So authentication, access controls, encryption, passwords, backup, firewalls, VPN, physical security, security policies. So as we discussed, right? So authentication is something like providing you with the credentials. So there is a difference between access control and authentication. So authentication is simply identifying the user. So I know this is the user who is logging in. So I have given him the credentials to log in. So only with the valid credentials he can log in. He or she can log in. So next, access control. So though you may have the valid credentials, for some servers or for some information, you may not have access. So as we told, right, we saw in the previous slides about the classification of information. So that restriction, so who can have access to a particular information, so that restriction will be taken care by access control. So that will be like say for example, in Microsoft environment, right, Office 365 environment, you will have the organizational unit. So in the Active Directory, every team will be created and provided a different OU, a different object group, so that people in that group only have access to the servers in that group, or whatever policy is pushed in that group. So they have access only to that limited asset or data. So apart from that, you don't have access to any other server. Another example, let us say, for example, let's talk about VPN in access control. Okay, so VPN will be provided to you. There will be a VPN client in your client machine. So if you are using a laptop or a desktop, you will have a VPN client, and the organization firewall will authenticate you, and the VPN connection will be validated at the firewall. So while talking about access control to the information, now you have two servers, one in Singapore and one in Mumbai. Okay, let's say, for example. So if you are if your team has access to only the server in Mumbai, then the VPN profile created to you will be provided with access only to that particular server farm or the data center. So apart from that, you cannot access Singapore data center or the server in that particular data center. So for that, you have to be with an access or the VPN profile for that Singapore network. So it's like that. So the level of access, what level of access you have. So whether you can simply a read only access or a write access, so that will also be taken care here in the access control. So encryption, as we saw in the previous slide, encryption will be used for the data in transit. So the encryption of data, so that no tampering or no unauthorized party can breach into the data that is in transit. So encryption. Apart from that, even encryption also plays a role in disk encryption and storage encryption. So even in that case, even in data at rest, in the storage data, that can also be encrypted, provided the decryption key will be the authorized or authenticated party. So that is about encryption. So next will be passwords. As we told, authentication, it will have the password, which helps you authenticate. So your user ID, password. So two things, right? So with the user ID, you're just saying I'm the user, but to authenticate you, you need to tell the passphrase or the password, right? So to authenticate this particular user, we need a valid password. So that passwords we have to provide access to the information we require. Next will be backup. Yeah, so backup is something which will be a part of the disaster recovery plan. Any organization, they will have a backup policy where any sensitive data that needs to be backed up in a periodic manner, so that in case of any natural calamity or any data breach or whatever, anything may happen. So anything, if the data in the primary server is lost, or if something goes wrong with that, then there will be a backup for the primary. So the data is not lost, it is all backed up. And one interesting thing to be noted here is, organizations, the best practice here is to implement the backup plan in a different location. For example, if we have a natural calamity, let's say there is a cyclone in Bay of Bengal. So then in that case, it should be not be the server in southern part, right? It may be affected. So in Chennai or Bangalore or Kerala, so or Andhra Pradesh, so wherever it is. So maybe there is a data center in these regions, and due to cyclone or due to some flood, the data center is flooded, and all the servers are so affected because of it. Then if you don't have a backup plan, it's a big disaster for the organization. So in that case, the organization needs to have a backup complete recovery setup, a secondary setup in a different location, complete different location, like in Mumbai or in Pune, or in a complete opposite part of the geography. Geographic separation is very essential when it comes to backing up. So that is important point that should be noted. Pretty much, yeah. Physical security. So again, physical security is again another thing where so as we told, natural calamity is one thing where we need to ensure that even in during the storm or a cyclone or whatever, the data center is not affected. So that is one thing which we need to consider. And another thing is, human threats. So say for example, if there is an attacker who comes to steal the data, who walks in into the data center or the organization, he simply gets into the server room. So we need to have a logging of who is entering, and a security check should be there. So these things will come under physical security. So let us say the physical security will include security officers at the reception, security checks and ID cards, access cards. So access cards need to have, even in the access cards, we need to give the restricted access control. So if you are a server admin, then you may have the access to the server room. Otherwise, if you are just a developer, right? So then why would you require an access to the server room? So you will not be provided an access to the server room at all. So these kind of minor things needs to be taken care, and that will be covered under physical security. And even fire or those kind of threats will be covered in physical security. So we need to have fire extinguishers, all these things. So these things will be covered in physical security. So all these controls, whatever security controls we talk about, we need to first identify what is the scope of assets we have, what is the scope of information sources we have. So once we identify all these sources, we need to draft the policies accordingly. So the information security policies will be drafted according to that. That's about the tools of information. Yeah. So as I covered previously, physical security, we have locked doors, access cards, physical intrusion detection using security cameras, environmental monitoring, temperature, humidity, and airflow, fire alarms, employee awareness training. So here, one thing I want to highlight is having a CCTV camera. So nowadays, it is very essential. So even in the cops are using security cameras to catch burglars and the defaulters quick. So that in that case, it's very essential. And also, if you look at the environmental monitoring, temperature, humidity, and airflow, so this plays a role when we have the server rooms, right? So in the server rooms, the server is not like a normal computer. So it is running heavy data. It is continuously handling heavy data requests. Ingress and egress of data is very high. So the server utilization, the CPU utilization is always at the peak. To ensure that it does not get heated up, right? So normally any electronic gadget or any electronic device, it gets heated up when it is continuously in use. So any server room, if you get an opportunity to get into a server room, it will be complete air conditioned. So it will be maintained at a low temperature, so at an optimum temperature. The heat will not increase, affecting the semiconductor devices inside the server. So if they reach a very a kind of temperature, a saturation point, beyond that, it can melt the components or the circuits. So for that, we need to ensure the atmosphere, the room temperature is optimum, and even the humidity. So we need to check. So as I told you, the server rooms and all will be air conditioned. So we need to ensure that the air conditioning mechanism or the air conditioning system is also maintained at a proper humidity. If it is high, then the moisture may affect the electronic components as well. So that is also a risk. So these things should be monitored continuously. So all these things will be continuously monitored, and it will be taken care by the physical security teams. So all the physical security and the digital security. So all these things will be coming under the information security policies which we define. So employee awareness training. So again, so to ensure all these things are in place, right? So to ensure everything happens smoothly, we need to train the employees. We need to give them awareness what is happening, why it is essential, so why it is required, so what would go wrong if it is not followed properly. So all these things needs to be given as a program to the employees, so that they would understand what the risk and importance of it. So so that's what it is. So for example, lock doors with access cards, right? So if the user simply lets in some, if the user has an access card, valid access card, and behind him there is an attacker who is trying to piggyback, right, trying to tailgate the user, I mean the employee who has the valid access card should tell the stranger who is trying to tailgate, he need to ask him to show his access card. He need to use his access card to enter the room or facility. So these things needs to be inculcated in the employees themselves. So only then it will be getting into practice, and we can ensure. It's not like every time the management will get into to ensure the security. So yeah, so personal information security. So what we can do to ensure security as an individual, right? So keep your software up to date, install antivirus software, use public networks carefully, back up your data, secure accounts with two-factor authentication, make your passwords long, unique, and strong. Be suspicious of strange links and attachments. Your system. So whatever PC or laptop you're using, ensure that your software is always up to date. So you have security updates, even in Android phones and all, right? So you have a frequent security bug fixes and security updates and all. So those things needs to be updated. So from an organization perspective, there will be admin team which will push the necessary updates to your machines from a SCCM. So from a centralized server, they will push it to all the end devices. That is something the organization takes care. And even the antivirus software. So installing it, and every time there will be new release every day. In case of an organization, if you see, there are commercial and enterprise editions of antiviruses and softwares. So they will be providing that and patch releases on a daily basis. So those will be pushed by the organization admin to the all the end user and end devices. And public networks. So whenever you use your devices to connect to public Wi-Fi or any other networks, right? So you need to be careful, because you don't know whether it is a authorized network or not. So for example, if you are not using a public network, it is safe, because you don't actually get into any trouble, because everything is managed and you know which network you're using. But in case if it is a public network, an attacker may be sitting somewhere in the same network, and he may be trying to sniff your traffic. Make sure it doesn't happen. So whenever you use a public network, be careful about that. Securing your account with two-factor authentication. Two-factor authentication, as I told, so you need to identify yourself with a username and a password. So apart from password, after entering a password, you also need to have a second authentication mechanism, so that by mistake, if you had logged in somewhere, right? So you would have logged into a internet cafe or somewhere, or on a friend's mobile phone, somewhere you would have logged in. So again, if you would have forgot to delete the password, or you would have by mistake saved the password in a different so in that case, again, if they are able to try logging into the particular application, then you need to get a notification to authenticate that particular login. So for that, you may have an OTP sent to your mobile phone. So that will be a second level of authentication. So we need to have such kind of multiple authentication, multi-factor authentication, which we call it. Next is making a password strong. So you need to have you should not be using easily guessable passwords. Some people use very easily like admin password at 123. So these are very common passwords which are very insecure, and they attract a lot of easy compromise of your accounts. So make sure it doesn't happen. Try to use a longer password with characters and numbers and alphabets mixed in it. So that will ensure your password complexity. So be suspicious of strange links and attachments. So whenever you receive a mail, right? So you receive a mail with some attachments. They say like you have won some lottery or something. So if you just click and open this link, you will be able to, if you download this attachment and if you click on the link, you will get the prize or something. So in these scenarios, what would happen is, clicking on that link and downloading it to your machine, it may contain some malware, some malicious script could be there. Some even the ransomware attacks make use of this mechanism. So you get some phishing mails or this kind of suspicious mails. So do not click them. So once you click them and download and it runs on your system, you won't know whether it has been installed. Once you have just simply downloaded and clicked on that link, it would automatically run on the background and no, and maybe your mission would become a victim, and your mission would be a part of a botnet which an attacker is using to steal your data, or maybe he's trying to use your machine successfully attack any other machine. So better you never click on suspicious or strange links or attachments. Yeah. So we now saw the details of information security. So now, as we know, all the organizations are completely shifting towards the digital domain, to the digital block. So everything is moving to the cloud, and complete digital transformations taking place. So in this, we need to understand what kind of security threats we have. So for that, we need to know what are our attack surfaces. So broadly, we have network and applications. So network security and application security are the two domains in cybersecurity which are broadly classified, where you can implement all your security controls. So these are the two key areas which needs to be secured every now and then, and it's not like these are just the single time work that needs to be done. It's like a continuous mechanism. Every day cybersecurity analysts are working. Every day they are getting thousands and thousands of attack signatures, attack attempts. So everything is going on a daily basis. Every second there is an attack attempt. To ensure everything is safe and secure, we have these control mechanisms in place. So for network side, we have firewall, endpoint security, IDPS, SIEM, which is incident response. I'll tell you what these are. And application security point, we have application security testing, source code review, web application firewall. From the network security perspective, so let us consider an organization which has a, so every organization will have a perimeter firewall. So in the perimeter, so whenever a traffic gets into the organization, it first needs to the firewall at the perimeter of the organization, the network perimeter. So there the traffic will be allowed only when the source is authorized or from an authenticated source. It will allow only the traffic which is, firewall basically has the rule set. So what is the source IP, what is the destination IP, and what ports we can allow. So port 443, port 80. So some ports are there. Ports in the sense, those are the logical numbers on which each and every service of a particular service runs. Say for example, if it is a web application, HTTP service runs on 443 and port 80. If it is HTTPS, if the application is using a SSL certificate or a TLS certificate, it will be using the 443 port. So like this. So if it is an FTP connectivity, then it will be using port 21, and if it is a telnet connection, it will be using port 23. So it goes on like this. So firewall. So what is the access IP? So what is the source IP? What is the destination IP? So that applies to both from the internal network and the outside network as well. So from the internal network, from the say for example, if you take for example bank networks. So if you reach any your nearest branch of bank where you have an account, the ideal case is they won't have an internet connection. They only have an intranet connection, so that no data goes outside of the bank, because that's very sensitive, right? So the bank needs to have a secure network so that no intrusion happens, no unauthorized breach would happen. So that will really have a big impact. So they would not prefer internet access to their employees. So only intranet connectivity will be there. Intranet in the sense, you will have, the bank employee will have access to the computers connected within the bank branch, and maybe they have connection to other branches or head office, but they will not have access to the internet. So there will be a separate tunnel or a kind of VPN network to connect to other branches if required. So these things will be taken care by the firewall, where the restrictions would be applied. So next will be endpoint security. From the perimeter perspective, we have seen it. So now from the endpoint security, endpoint is nothing but your laptop, your desktop in the organization, or even your mobile is an endpoint. So for that, we need to ensure that you would not have any malwares downloaded in your machine, or you would not there may be some employees which we call insider threat. So they would steal the information of the organization, and they may sell it outside, or they may use it for their own personal gains and all. So those things should not happen. So for that, at the endpoint level, or at the laptop or desktop level, we install some endpoint clients and data loss prevention clients, which would not allow the user to upload anything from their machine to the internet. So that will be endpoint security, and even storing your data in the encryption format. So all these things will be taken care of by endpoint security. So next, IDPS. So it is the intrusion detection and prevention system. So in the network, apart from the firewall, right? So in the firewall, I told it will be source and destination IP addresses. But apart from that, if you have any files that have malware, or any known signatures of attack, say for example, if there is a attack signature for a virus, a particular virus, or a malware, so that will be detected by the IDES or IDPS. So an IDS, intrusion detection system, would detect the malicious traffic, and it will send a notification to the incident response team, that is the SIEM team. Below you can see. So security information and event management, SIEM. So this team will manage the security incidents. So all such malicious traffic will be monitored by the SIEM team, and they would take the measures to either block the IP from where the malicious traffic is coming, or if the malicious user inside the organization is trying to access some malware site or something, then they would notify that particular user and restrict him from accessing, or even they restrict his access to the organization network. Once he has given a valid justification, then only he will be provided access to the his access will be revoked. So these things happen. So that is from the network security. So from application security, an organization, as I told you, if the organization has a web application, right? www.application.com, the organization's application. So when they access it from the internet, so for the public, it is open from the internet. Anyone can access the application. So that will be it's an open attack surface for anyone from the internet. Any attacker can try to hack the web application. So we need to do a testing. So here, from the network security, we normally give the inputs, and we put the rules to avoid any malicious traffic, and if there is any malicious traffic, we block it. Whereas in application security, we do the testing for the application, we try to hack it. We from the organization, the security, they try to hack the application, they test it from the security perspective. Whatever bugs are there, security threats are there in the application, they will be notifying it to the developers, and the developers will be fixing them. This is one thing from the application in the runtime. The DAST is dynamic application security testing. So it will be done in the runtime. So it's like just normally going to the browser, entering the URL, and browsing the application. So while browsing the application, if you find any bugs, then that will be DAST, dynamic application security testing. And in a starting stage of the development itself. So before the application is live in production, I mean, when it is available on the internet. Before that, when it is in the development stage. So at that point in time, we have a mechanism for reviewing the source code. What is the in the source code itself? so that once it is fixed in the source code itself, then when it is moving to the production, the bugs in the application is drastically reduced. So that is something which is called SAST, static application security testing. Next will be web application firewall. So web application firewall is similar to the native firewall which we discussed on network security. So here the only difference is the web application firewall, it will work on the application level, application layer. So it will only look at the HTTPS traffic, HTTP and HTTPS traffic. Here it will just check the HTTP request and responses. So what is the request coming into the server, and if there is any malicious content in the request, it will block it. So even the responses, so whatever response, say for example, logging into the particular application, so you would give in the browser, you would enter username and password and you will submit, or you will give the login button. So once it is clicked, it will go to the web server, to the backend server. So while you sending this request, maybe you can send some malicious payload embedded in the request body of that particular HTTP request, and you may send it to the backend server, and the server may not know that, and it may execute the malicious code that was embedded in the request. So to avoid this, to prevent this, the web application will be placed in front of the web server. So when the request is coming from the browser, it will first reach the web application firewall. The web application firewall will inspect the request. If there is something malicious, then it will block it. It will not go to the backend server at all. If it is legitimate, then it will send it back to the backend server. And if the backend server throws some error, or if it reveals some sensitive information, like for example, sometimes by in the runtime error or something in the browser, you may see the stack trace, or the server version. So these things may be browser response. So those things will also be restricted by web application firewall, and you will not receive any. You will just receive an error message from the web application firewall. So that is from the application security perspective.